All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. This is the Spoiled Onions Film Review Podcast. My name is Joyo.
Do you have any idea how absolutely ready I am for today's episode? Do you have any concept? By the way, I'm Brandon. Do you have any concept as to how I am almost shaking over here? I am so insanely ready to talk about this. I had just watched this movie today. I have waited years to see Fant4stic. And now I have the chance.
There you go. I've got to say,
such things.
I love the Fantastic Four films. I love Chris Evans as the Human Torch. I love Jessica Alba as Sue Storm. I love the corniness of it. I love its silliness and yet its seriousness all at the same time. I think it helps shape modern films, and I'm glad we get to talk about the Fantastic Four film today.
Yeah, I remember the original two back from the earlier 2000s. I've heard apparently some people really didn't like them. I thought they were normal. I thought they were pretty good compared to what other super movies have been in the past. I guess they didn't take itself as seriously as maybe a lot of the newer ones do. But there was nothing that, stood out as being terrible. Maybe like the depictions, for the comic book fans that, they didn't like those movies. Maybe they didn't like how they did Silver Surfer or how they did Galactus. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Storm in the second one. And I understand that. But as a kid, I didn't know Fantastic Four or anything. So when I was watching the movie, it was all new to me. And I liked it at the time. But those aren't the movies we're talking about today.
Wait, we're not talking about those?
No. The one we're speaking of today is Fant4stic 2015.
Oh, we were supposed to do that one?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't...
Joseph, I know it might be a surprise.
Okay, we'll edit this part out. Listen, I don't think people really care about that movie, Brandon.
What are you talking about?
I don't think that's the one they want to watch.
You're lying to yourself, Joseph. What are you talking about?
Am I lying to it? No, I mean, no one talks about that movie. It had a lot of issues. It's just I don't think most people have even seen it.
What are you talking about? You're not being serious, are you? Did
No.
I watch the wrong movie?
No, guys. I'm not being serious.
God, you have no idea how ready I am hot right now. My neck is hot. Because I am so ready to talk about Fant4stic 2015.
All right,
I have zero care for the other two movies. I was just giving the proper introduction for them. I want to talk about Fant4stic, and you know why I want to talk about Fant4stic, Joseph?
All I want to know is where are my children?
4 have survived. All exhibit unique physical conditions.
I just want to fix my friends.
You can't fix this.
You should use these powers to help people.
You opened a door you don't know how to close. You don't know anything about what's coming.
What is coming?
Doom.
Because unlike you, you were
hated
right.
it, or you loved it?
It was not good.
It
was not good. That was not good. I'll put it like that's me being very, very nice about it. That was not good.
You did not like it. Wow.
That was such a sad attempt to a movie. I hate to jump to the end right now, all right? You'll have a full hour, folks. Get ready. This is what's ahead.
Okay, all right.
What an insane experience I just went through for an hour and 40 minutes. Wow.
Well, hey, you guys are going to hear some arguing because I actually disagree. I think it is a good film and it struggles in different areas. No. I actually like it.
He's coping, folks. He's coping.
Okay, hey,
hard.
Let's do a hard stop because what I want to actually do for this podcast, it's our third podcast, and these people literally know nothing about us except our names and our speech mannerisms.
Yes.
Which might be enough. I don't know. But why don't we take a minute or two and talk about I mean, I know you're working on a big project. I'm kind of working on a project. Just kind of talk about what we're doing right now and what direction we're heading in as creators, filmmakers, animators. If you want to start us off.
Sure. My name, yet again, is Brandon Cummings. I am an aspiring Christian filmmaker, and right now I'm in the production, what has been a 2.5-year process of my younger adult life, of making a Christian sci-fi series, something that I can put online that's accessible to everybody. My goal is to try to bring about theological messages and start Christian discussions using the form of entertainment without it coming off as forced or being corny. I want it to be something that somebody can really consume and want to consume, right? So it puts me in a position in these last few years to really study hard and really make sure that I know what I'm wanting to do when it comes to making a film or making a series, writing a series, and how shots are supposed to be done. All of that I really get myself into, which is why I'm so passionate when it comes to films such as this one, and why there's so much to learn. And by the way, that's where you're gonna hear me later on. There are positives. I do think there's a bunch of positives in this film, and I was recording it in my own mind what I did like, but there were a lot of things that stood out that I think, at least in my own experience, I would not have made those decisions, or I would have done something different. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up, the whole learning thing, because that's kind of where I am at too. I've spent pretty much the entire quarantine learning everything there is to know about animation and visual effects. And currently I'm finishing up actually a animated short film. It's going to be a fight sequence. It's in the rendering phase, which is pretty much the next to last phase. But right before post-production. So that's been an awesome experience. And like Brandon, I've just been kind of consuming, movies to learn about shots and angles, and then as well as animated movies to learn more about, just the animation process, and so many tutorials, and it's been good. And again, that's what this podcast really is for both of us and for you as the listener. It's something to approach movies not merely as entertainment, but as a way to be challenged, to learn, to grow, as an art form in itself. So that's why we're here. That's why we're pseudo qualified to give you our opinion. So,
yeah,
cool. All right, well, let's start off this Fant4stic review by talking about how awesome the movie is. No, let's actually start by talking about the production issues, because literally everything Brandon's going to poke at, I'm gonna argue that it was the fault of the studio.
Please enlighten me. Please enlighten me. I gotta know.
Well,
I've gotta know.
There's not much really to the story, especially if you know anything about what happened to Justice League with Zack Snyder, or apparently the Suicide Squad with David Ayer. Basically, Josh Trank, this is his second film. His first one was a film called Chronicle, where it was a largely similar storyline. It was about 3 superheroic teenagers, and apparently, I haven't seen the film, but apparently during the course of the film, as they get their powers, they start to realize there's consequences, and they maybe abuse their powers. And it's all told from a shaky cam video recording perspective.
Yeah, so, I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Oh, have you seen it? Really?
Yo, Chronicle? Yeah, I like that
okay.
one. It was a good movie. I know that it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but it was very effective with what it was trying to do, and it touched me. It was a very emotional experience, too.
Okay, well, we might have to talk about that one, because I definitely want to see it.
You haven't seen Chronicle?
No, I have not seen it yet.
Oh man, that was a good movie. That was a great movie. I like Chronicle.
I believe you, because I think this movie was pretty good. So anyway, but yeah.
That's why I was so disappointed. I was just like, this poor man. Now he's never going to get work again.
Yeah, I know. That's the sad thing. So basically, Fox comes up to him. They have to do another Fantastic Four movie because of legal rights or whatever. And they approached Trank because of his success, which, I mean, is an odd decision, because I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Chronicle, but it didn't seem like a movie that was close to a Fantastic Four vibe.
Sure.
But yeah, anyway, as I imagine, Trank, a young filmmaker, was really excited, said yes to the project. They begin, and for what I can understand, Trank wanted to do something really different in the superhero genre, something in line with a horror film, if you will. And the studio was like, whoa, this is not going to work. And apparently there was a rewrite after rewrite of the script. They had to do reshoots after a lot of the film had already been done. If you see the trailers, most of the shots in the trailers are not actually in the movie. So it's just your basic storyline of director and studio don't agree. And because of that, the movie suffers greatly and pretty much died. Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
I was thinking about it as I was watching the film, for where it felt like it's wanting to be one thing one moment, and then another thing another moment, and then another thing again. Mm-hmm. And it's almost as if, like, was he trying to do one thing at one point? And another thing it made me think of is that I feel like it was perhaps rushed at some point. Like, at certain points, the director may have genuinely cared about what he was trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. But then because of what the producers are wanting, they just rush out the rest of it. And like you said, there are contracts to these sort of things, just like with Spider-Man and whatnot, that if they don't use these characters, then certain things expire. So it was coming up to a point, I could imagine, that Fox was like, all right, well, we got to make another one of these or else we're going to miss out here. So let's just hurry up and get one out because they think of it as valuable.
No, it felt like there was a studio messing with it, needless to say. But yeah, I mean, that is pretty much the production issue history. Josh Trank, recently, after the whole Snyder Cut Justice League was released, or was announced, someone tweeted Josh Trank and was like, oh, hey, let's now do the Josh Trank cut. And I think it's cool because it did definitely hit Trank's career hard. He did just release another film called Capone. It's about Al Capone, and it has Tom Hardy as Al Capone. And it released, I think right when everything started to get shut down. It was like a release, but I mean, you could tell it wasn't really advertised. It was just kind of a small thing. But,
I didn't even see it myself. I know Tom Hardy. I saw Tom Hardy in it, and he's done Gangster Role before. But according, at least to the all-knowing Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 41% from the critics and got 25% from the audience. That's not usually a good thing there. And, I was just looking up Josh Trank, right? I was thinking, well, what else has he done since? And sadly, after Fantastic Four, right? He did Chronicle, then he did Fantastic Four, and then he hadn't done a single thing until Capone. Yeah. I'm like, oh, no. No, this poor man.
Listen, it's not the end per se. I mean, like, every director has their flaws.
He gone, man. He gone.
I hope not.
He gone, man. I'm so sorry, Joseph. I'm sorry.
Listen.
I want you to defend this movie, and then I'm going to take away your morale. Please.
No, I think it was if I can speak for Trank, it was a poor decision to take the film in the first place. I mean, I know of except Nolan, but that's a rare instance of a director's vision lining up with what the studio thinks is all right. But other than that, I don't know of any big mainstream auteur director that's actually worked on a superhero film. Edgar Wright was close with Ant-Man, but he ended up turning it down because of creative differences. And then he made Baby Driver, which was awesome. So I think had Trank objectively stepped back, with maybe more of the wisdom of an older director and realized that what he wanted wasn't going to be possible, I think it would have been better for him to decline it and then perhaps make another superhero film and make it exactly like he wanted to make Fantastic Four.
Right.
But again, we all make mistakes. And I never finished the tweet story. Basically, he tweeted back and said, I'm not Zack Snyder. There will be no Josh Trank cut. Which is cool. No. I mean, he's moved on. He's accepted it.
Oh,
I think it's more. There's more to say in that attitude than there is in like David Ayer, for instance, who every week tweets about how he was wronged and how the David Ayer Suicide Squad cut is so much better, and how blah 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 blah. So, okay, well, let's just jump in with the storyline. I've been talking a lot. Do you wanna give us a quick synopsis for those who may not have seen it?
So there isn't much of a story here, folks. You might as well just.
Oh my gosh!
Right? This movie sucks. All right, this movie sucks. All right, this guy is both. He's not just a director, folks. He is also the writer, and a lot of people, even like Zack Snyder, isn't even always necessarily the. Let me say this too. He's probably not the only writer. He probably has a team, but he is credited as the writer.
Okay. That's fair.
For the screenplay. And so he's both the screenplay writer and the director. That's a lot of power and say. I'm not saying that the producers aren't in there, but they must have changed this thing multiple times over to get what we ended up with, because the direction of what the film is doing completely and drastically shifts again and again. I cannot express to you. Let's go through the synopsis. Here we go.
Let's do it.
All right. Movie starts off and we're out in the elementary school class. Cue. Right? Kid comes up. Already, I'm kind of like... Because I like the cinematography.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of the Marvel movies, right? A lot of the Marvel shots and whatnot, in my opinion, can come off as bland and lower quality compared to these other studios when they do superhero movies, right?
Okay.
When Sony had Spider-Man, the shots in Amazing Spider-Man and Sam Raimi's, those things are a lot more unique and special with the color and what they do than the new Spider-Man. And I don't know if it's because of the way Marvel does their cinematography in order to create a level of consistency, but I think it's a lot more epic when you have that variety of cinematography between films, and it makes it seem much more individual and contained when you have those individual styles. It's what makes things fascinating and new and makes me want to go see it. And I got it in this film too, all right? It is unique. You start off and you're in the classroom. It kind of gives me that Man of Steel vibe without the noise in the image. And the kid comes up after hearing the football thing, and he's all like, I want to teleport when I grow up. It's like, first of all,
am I gonna have to nitpick? Just am I gonna have to
all right, fine. Reed Rich. Oh,
all right. Let me take over because you clearly can't do this unbiased.
I am so emotionally thrilled. I am emotionally driven.
I'm gonna try to leave as much emotions out of this synopsis as possible.
I can't speak objectively.
All right, so here's the laydown. Here's the rundown of the plot. All right, yes, movie opens in classroom with Reed Richards telling the class that he wants to teleport when he gets older, and everyone makes fun of him. Cut to Ben Grimm, who's also in that class, running into him later, and they basically become friends and help build this machine, and it works. Then cut to 7 years later, and Reed Richards, the team of Reed Richards and Ben Grimm, get approached by Franklin Storm and Sue Storm, who are also working on a teleportation device to help them finish theirs. So that's the formation of the team. Reed ends up going to the Baxter building and working on this project. They bring in Victor Von Doom as the other expert on teleportation. And Johnny Storm also gets brought in as a lending hand. And the machine is built. Then the funders... So to give a little more backstory, they were supposed to be the ones to be teleported. The people who created it. So Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Victor Von Doom, and Reed Richards were promised that they would be the first people to go to this other dimension. Well, the funders are like, no, we don't want you to do that. So they're like, well, we don't care about you. And they end up doing it anyway. And that's where everything goes wrong. So Reed gets Ben to come with him because they're friends. And then Victor and Johnny go as well. While they're on this other world, things go bad. They get their powers. They come back. Sue's in the building. She also gets hit with some energy, and they all get their powers. That sets up, that's pretty much the climax of the movie. And then the latter half explores how they're handling these powers. So they all get pretty much brought in by the government for testing. Reed ends up escaping while Sue, Ben, and Johnny are basically tested on and tried to be turned into weapons. Victor, on the other hand, was left behind on the planet because they couldn't save him. So there's that part of the story. To wrap this up, Reed ends up returning. The team gets together just in time for the portal to be reopened, and Victor shows up and wants to destroy the world. Then you have the climactic ending scene where they all fight Victor, destroy Doctor Doom. The world is saved, and they basically become a team. And that is the premise of Fantastic Four.
Now, you see, all that on paper sounds okay. And sadly, the execution of all of that and the pacing of all of that is such a disgrace against my country that I will not be able to sleep at night. I am both smiling and scared by what I have witnessed in this film. And it's so sad because there are so many moments where I think that this can actually start getting good. And then I'm disappointed. I think the best part of this movie was when they decided to use the teleportation machine, go to the other dimension, and the short time in which they were being experimented on, and then Reed escapes. That was the best part of this whole movie. That was the most excitement. And then it changes tones again. And I'm like, what am I watching? I am, it hurts. I do not know where to begin. I cannot begin.
Wow, I'm sorry. When we decided on this, I didn't think you would be in pieces.
Oh man, I thought you said that I'd probably disagree, and I was like, no, I'm open, right? You told me before that it's kind of like a body horror film. Like,
it is a body horror film.
I'm open to new things. I'm open.
No. It in and of itself. It in and of itself is a bad story.
Listen.
Unrealistic. So
it's a superhero
silly.
movie, man. It's not supposed to be realistic.
No. You don't understand. The unrealistic aspects are not the scientific things. It's how people behave.
Okay. All right. Well, listen.
Regards.
Let's stay on story because my argument is that the story of this movie is perfect. There is literally nothing I would change about it. I think the story in itself. I'm not talking pacing. I'm not talking dialogue. I'm not talking anything like that. I'm talking about the basic plot beats where the team comes together. Yes.
You're telling me. Hold on a second.
Oh, gosh.
You're telling me. Hold on a second. You telling me you'd have Storm and Sue Storm randomly walk in on Reed and Grimm in the middle of a high school science fair saying, "You did it. You cracked it." What were they doing there? I don't know what they were even doing. At a high school science fair? What do you mean looking? Isn't this the only thing that they study? What is this, a common thing? Are they teaching this in high school now? What's going on?
Look.
That made no sense.
Listen, when you're making
was a miracle.
movie, the entire movie has to A, bring the team together, B, give them their powers, C, set up the villain, and D, destroy the villain. That's a lot to do in one movie. That's all I'm saying.
That was no. See, that's the thing, is that these settings and all that, there were way better ways that you could have went about doing certain things. Simple lines and all that, right? There's some charm in the idea that, Reed and Grimm, when they were kids, all together. You got to get him in there somewhere because he's not the stereotypical scientific mind in there. Mm-hmm. But there's so many unrealistic things that I say that connects them together. The only people that should be interacting or should be of any interest is Reed and Storm and Sue Storm. Franklin Storm, is that the father's name?
Yes.
And let's say he went to college and then he broke through with this great old project that he was working on that was being funded by the university and caught the attentions of those from the company. That's a million times more realistic than saying, "Hey, Grimm, get the cardboard. We're going to the science fair at the high school." Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? Not you, the director. Are you out of your mind? How? Why are they there? No, that does not make sense. And even worse is that, where's the car? Where'd you put the car? Don't get me started on Victor Doom. Oh, no.
All right. Hard stop. I give that to you. Sure. I don't think the opening is the best. I think they spent way too much time with the kids in the first place.
Okay.
But there are key things I think work really well. And let me just say what those are. Because the rest, yeah, some of the filler stuff is not great. I think the key things that work are the fact that teleportation is the way they get their powers. And the idea of teleportation is what the movie revolves around. Because the original plot of how the Fantastic Four get their powers, and what I think the first movies tried to do, is they literally just fly into space. They're doing something in space, and then they get hit by some kind of beam, and that's how they get their powers, which is so lame. So
it's not realistic. It's not realistic.
Yeah. So I think that idea of like, let's build this teleportation machine, which is one of the issues people had with it. They're like, that's not faithful to the source comics, which it's not. But it again, yes, it feels more realistic in our day and age where space travel is just such a common thing. Teleportation is not. And I think it allowed for really awesome visuals. It allowed for some cool effects. And really, when they get their powers, it's just everything about it makes sense, right? Because like the thing becomes the thing because his door gets stuck open. So all the rocks are flying into his little pod. And that's how he becomes a thing. Johnny Storm becomes Johnny Storm because his glass breaks and he catches on fire. You know, I don't know if they really showed how Reed gets it, but then Sue...
Well, actually, I have a theory why it is that he is the stretchy one.
Okay.
I think it has to do, as weird as this might sound, he was the one that was holding on to Victor Von Doom while he was dangling and hanging from the ropes. So his arm and all that being pulled out. Right. So I don't know if like somehow that might have had some sort of effect. I know that sounds funny, but I really do think that that's what's being implied there. Even if that's the least realistic of all the other reasons.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. And even Doom, it's such a departure from the Doom of the comics, but it makes sense because he literally falls into this vat of energy, lava, whatever it is. And then his suit gets fused to him, which in the comics, he can't really remove his suit. And that's where he gets the powers that he has. I mean, Doom is a very powerful comic book villain, and it just makes sense. And of all the comic book movies I've seen, I think this one makes the most sense in how they get their powers. I mean, like when you watch Hulk, why the heck does he turn into Hulk? You know, he gets blasted with radiation and he's Hulk, you know? I mean, there's others. Iron Man, of course, is practical. Captain America makes sense. But I'm talking about when you're going into like the almost fantastical, I don't know, like magical parts of science fiction, where I think Fantastic Four dwells. You know, not so much the practical side where Iron Man and Captain America would dwell, but where like people are doing things just no one could possibly do. I think that part of the plot was perfect to me. And so,
I like that too. Regardless, without even thinking about the comic book stuff, when it comes to how they become the characters, like I said, that was the best part of the movie. That was one part of the movie where I thought that this actually feels like a good narrative that's going on here, and I thought that that's where it was going to start to pick up, and we were going to get into the plot of whatever that was going to be, and I was genuinely intimidated, like as if it was a horror out of nowhere.
Yes.
When they come back and I forget his first name, Johnny Storm is on fire, is like laying there like a corpse on fire. You're just like assuming, oh, he's dead, right? And you can hear Grimm like crying out for help, like help me, help, like in the rock, and I already know, like oh no, and then I could tell that his leg is still trapped. He's turning around, and so it's like and then he's trapped, and then you see where all they are, and you feel bad for them and all. It's just like wow.
Yeah, and even just the use, like you were talking about earlier, and we'll probably get more into this later, but in that scene, that's another part I really love. That whole idea of people that get superpowers like that aren't going to be like, wow, this is awesome, let's go save the world. They're going to be like, what the heck happened to me? How do I get this fixed? They're going to be freaking out. And you get that so clearly in that scene. And what's beautiful is clearly Josh Trank has a affinity for horror. he films it like a horror movie, and yet the visuals are so beautiful. Like, I think of when Sue is on the table and she's fading in and out because she's Invisible Woman now. It's just that scene is shot really well. And then again, like you said with the Human Torch, very well shot. You know, it gives us this sense of kind of horror, but at the same time, it's like, wow, these guys are awesome now. And I think that's another part of the story that's really well done. I think, if I may, everything after that climax, the ideas of it are well done. The execution of it, not so much. And what I mean by ideas is I mean this idea of horror, like, oh my goodness, how am I going to fix this? You know, this is really bad. And then the ideas of, it's a little trite, but the idea that the government wants to use them as a weapon. And my favorite scene in the movie is when Doom comes back. And I don't think it's done as well as it could be. But that whole scene where he gets unleashed and he's just walking around killing people. It's so non-Marvel. It's beautiful. And then they kind of have to find him. It's not very well executed on film, but the idea of him, that whole scene and him walking through a dark compound is cool. And I think that is probably one of the last things that I actually really enjoy about this plot and the movie.
Yeah, I bet if the pacing was different and how much they would dwell on certain points, certain beats of the film, if you had, like, let's say the point in which they went to the other dimension happen a little earlier, and spend more time in which they're going through, you know, and accepting where they're at, and then spend a little bit more time dealing with the point in which Victor Von Doom returns, you know, and Reed Richards return, you know, then this might feel a little bit more coherent. But especially at the very end there, I kid you not, I was watching this on my phone. And I tapped the screen, just randomly. I tapped the screen, and it shows me how much time is left. From the point in which Victor Von Doom was on the screen, it said there was like 14 minutes left. I was like, what? 14 minutes?
You know, that's so odd, because literally when this movie first came out and I first saw it in theaters, I had a friend who, I think it was a couple months later, they watched it too. And that's the exact same thing they said. They're like, as soon as the final battle started, I like looked to see how much time was left. And it was only like 9 minutes. And I was like, what? That's crazy. It's literally the same thing. Which so brings up the point, and I agree with you. I think there's two real big issues with this movie. But I think number one is the pacing. The first 40 minutes feels so dragged out. Yeah. And then boom, they get their powers, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. And then they just start accelerating and decelerating in weird spots. Like Reed escapes, and then bang, a year goes by, and it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. I wanted to see what it was going on there. And they skipped over the things that I actually thought mattered, and they're just coping. I thought they were going to be in a lot of trouble, those kids, you know. I thought for Grimm and all that he wasn't going to just willingly accept his circumstances and just start becoming a military soldier. I don't know why he so easily begrudged Reed. I get that he ran away, but I didn't for a second think that he ran away and didn't come back because, he's just being so selfish. That's not.
Right. Yeah, it was tough to buy. It wasn't good storytelling.
For him to be mad about it, and I don't even know what he was doing necessarily while he was down in, you know, I don't know what you'd call it, between Mexico and South America. I don't know what he was doing. He was getting metal parts and all that, but you're going to make a teleporting machine for what necessarily, right? For a year? I don't know what was going on there. And there's a lot of things that aren't answered. I don't know why Johnny and all of them are so willingly working with the government. And I actually think that the government was awfully nice compared to how they were portrayed when they first got the powers. It's like, well, wait a minute. Now you're just letting us act as superheroes for the U.S. military? That's what we're doing now? Well, that's not so bad. I thought you were going to try to experiment on us for the next year and torture us and strap us to a table like you did Reed Richards at the beginning there. And we'd have to like somehow plot a way to escape and hide from you. I thought that's where it was going to go. And it's like, no, you're just a product of the government in which you work. I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Huh? I don't know.
No, that's good. Yeah, it's and I believe it's reshoots. I mean, I'm going to blame it on reshoots.
I agree. I think that's where, at the writer's mind in me, that's where I start raising an eyebrow and go like, this is where I think the movie was probably going into a certain direction. Nothing like that of a superhero movie, right? That's not to say it couldn't end off where it could springboard into them doing heroic things, but it's just like, in the realistic sense, they wouldn't be just jumping in and happily assisting the government, and especially Johnny, for where he's like super gloating about it, which is in his character in the comics, but that is not what's been portrayed up to this point. And I don't know why, it just didn't seem right, especially with Doom at the very end, is that his motivations seem very just there because it has to be.
Yes.
And that's where I think, like, the producers probably just jump in there, and the things that as a viewer, I'm like, I just saw this guy splatter a guy's mind with his mind. How is Reed still alive? He's just an elastic man. Or the Thing, for that matter. Maybe the other two might have a chance, but it's like, I don't know how he's still able to even put up a fight. It sounds like it just out of nowhere became a superhero fighting film in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just felt so contrived at the end. I mean, even Doom's whole motivation. I mean, I'm not even going to say it's a bad villain motivation. I mean, the dude was crazy to begin with. He's now clearly crazier. And yeah, it would make sense if you lived on a planet for like over a year that you want that planet to survive. But like, why do you have to destroy Earth? It's almost like he gave it's almost like he gave a 5-minute speech, and then he was a villain all of a sudden.
Yeah, how did he do it? He just does. Which, okay, fine. Maybe he just does. But if we're talking about a story here, one raised an eyebrow and says, is this really... That's what I'm saying. It's like, this is all happening in the last 5 minutes. This doesn't seem like what this movie was built up to try to be. It's like, oh, this is all about stopping Doom from destroying the planet, to survive his planet. It's like, that doesn't seem right. It seems more so like this movie was maybe like a really elongated and perhaps more realistic when it comes to how they get their powers and where they end up, and setting up them as a team rather than having to face some sort of foe. Right. But that's what ended up happening, was that they ended up facing a foe, and I don't know. I don't know. No,
exactly.
Producers.
I think, well, when you look at a film, I was watching a video one time about Iron Man 2, and it talks about how when you watch a film, there's multiple plot lines, but usually there's one key scene in the movie where all those plot lines converge and everything makes sense. And I think in this movie, them getting their powers is the crux of the movie. In a normal superhero movie film, the pacing would be the powers are gotten relatively toward the beginning. The climax of the movie is where you first meet the boss fight, the villain, whatever. And they have like an initial clash. And then the third act ends in the big battle. So like Avengers, for instance. They come together first act. Climax is the helicarrier getting destroyed. So that's kind of an action battle scene. And then the movie ends with New York getting overrun by alien dudes. And so this movie, the fact that the climax is getting their powers, I think you're right. I don't think it's so much about fighting the villain as much as it's about the powers and how they got them. And if you watch, like, the first 40 minutes of the film is terribly slow. But there's nothing really wrong with slow. Obviously, as you mentioned, there's issues with the plot. And I get that. But that feels coherent. Once they get their powers, it felt like he was going to explore this more body horror genre where they're dealing psychologically with the effects and they're trying to overcome it to eventually come together and become a team. And then that's where it totally gets dismantled. It's almost like the first 40 minutes was building you off to a much better film. But that film was hijacked because producers were like, holy crap, we don't want a horror superhero film.
Yeah.
That's never been
Where's
done
this going?
until
That's not going to make that much money.
Exactly.
This isn't working. Hey, have you seen what they've been doing with Marvel and the Avengers? We want more of that.
Exactly.
Please, we need something going on here and here. Can you get them to fight like that Doom guy? Let's throw that in there. Let's do this and that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I thought... I'm so conflicted because the thing is that I do see where this could have been okay, in my opinion. And like you said, everything up to the point in which they get their powers, I think when Reed escaped is when everything went downhill.
Yes.
Because there's a few things I would have imagined as a writer, I would have taken it in accordance to the tone of the story up to that point. Right? Yes. These government dudes and all that, they're not the good guys. They've been portrayed as the bad guys. They continue to portray themselves as bad guys. And so it then seems as if now that they're taking advantage of them, not only because of their intelligence before, now they want to take advantage of their bodies. It's okay to allow them to be these bad guys that now we're just going to try to escape. I think what would have been smart is that the four of them somehow managed to escape together, get outside, pull an Incredible Hulk and run away from this government. Let's say they're in the middle of South America and they're out hiding. And then out of nowhere, they're thrust into a situation for where they're using their powers for good in the last moment. And then they have to run away yet again, right? And maybe they're, Storm's father is helping them escape. And they may not get their little tower in this movie. They may not get their, position or anything like that. And Doom might have to be another movie or something, whatever, right? But you don't get to get into what would be compelling, like the psychological thing with the Thing. And Storm or I should say, the Human Torch just immediately, boom, I love doing this. Yeah, I gotta do it. And he's only being mean to his family members just because, for some reason. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the second thing that I had an issue with, and I think it's where the movie really stumbles, and it's dialogue. And I mean, my goodness, there's the corniest, cheesiest dialogue in this film. Like the one that jumps to my mind is when they're actually on the other planet, and Johnny Storm's like taking a picture, and he's like, "Oh, definitely go on Instagram." I was like, that is the worst, most trite thing you could have put in that moment.
So stupid. It was so bad. I thought Grimm was so cool. He had the flag and everything. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And it was belittled. I don't even know how he got on this project. What did he do? Solder the What did he do?
I don't know.
Apparently he has a high IQ, but it's like we don't see that represented in any way. All he did was a drag race and then get his arm broken. His father picked him up, and now they're asking if he knew how to weld. Why is he one of the people going?
I know. Johnny was so accelerated into the story. That was a little weird, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody else, it made sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
poor Sue.
Yeah, I mean, all the dialogue though just feels contrived, and it feels forced, and it feels like they took. I mean, the whole thing where he's like, "Don't blow up, don't blow up." It just.
I knew that. Yeah, that part
it doesn't. Too. Yeah, it doesn't surprise you. It doesn't excite you. It just feels like you're going through the motions of what. And in some ways, you could argue that the dialogue is actually realistic because, frankly, we in real life do not have great dialogue.
Right.
But we don't watch movies to be reminded of how terrible our dialogue is. We watch movies to understand that we can improve the way we think and speak and share ideas. And this movie just doesn't challenge you in that way. And I mean, I don't know if you have any examples, but there's just, that Instagram one, and there's just so many others, especially in the first 40 minutes, because it's slow. And normally when a movie is slow, the dialogue is what takes precedent. And I think that's why it feels even slower. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, apparently Reed Richards is by far the smartest human being to have ever existed in all of fiction. Because while as Tony Stark, when he was a kid, was working on car engines at around the same age and constructing car engines, which is very complex, I'll admit, but is perhaps conceivable, perhaps.
Sure.
12-year-olds are not creating interdimensional teleportation machines. That is just so beyond. It is just so beyond, and I cannot begin to explain why it's so beyond. You do not have enough raw time in a day, in the amount of time that he's been alive, all right, as a child. Let's say he started when he was 6. There is not enough raw time in the day to accumulate enough mathematical knowledge and enough quantum physical understanding, and to have the incentive with no resources and everything from popsicle sticks and a 1980s computer in order to create a teleportation device. It doesn't exist, but you even see these this calculus-looking figures coming off of his screen. And he's so smart, and yet when given the one assignment about what do you want to do when you grow up, he says, I want to be the man who first teleports. You really think that's what the teacher's asking? You really thought that's what was going to give you the good grade? You don't have enough self-awareness, friend? Why is it that if you're capable of sending teleportation objects, you put up this crummy cardboard presentation at a high school science fair? You have created a revolution of all space and time, and yet you are keeping it to your garage? Are you out of your mind? Who wrote this?
Oh my God.
Everything up to that point was out the window, unrealistic, and it was almost funny when the older brother of Grimm was all like, It's clobbering time.
Oh, I know.
before going ahead and smacking him in the head, it's like, what? What kind of insane? Not in an abusive sense, but who in their right mind would think that that's an intimidating thing to say and actually go about grabbing their little brother and saying, it's clobbering time. Shut up. Shut up. I thought it was cute, though, that, they were friends since kids. It gets him into the picture because, like we said, he's not really, even in the comics, I don't know if he's necessarily the science one. He's the one constructing it, at least. He's more of the experimenter. He's the one who is a part of the experiments, right?
Yeah, like in the comics, he almost switches roles with Johnny. Because, or actually in the comics, him and Johnny are good friends. I think it would have almost been better if him and Johnny were friends. Because the thing, I believe his role was always like the engineer. He built stuff, He was like the mechanic dude that he knows the science behind how it works, but he's got the mechanic attitude over the scientist attitude. But yeah, I see your point.
That would probably make more sense too, is if he was the mechanic behind things, right? Because the engineering of it all is a lot different than talking about, what has to be going on physically and quantum physically and electronically, and it's much more conceivable. But with this, it's just like, hey, dude, I'm calling you up tonight. I don't know where you are in the country. You must be right next to New York, because I want you to come on down and put on a suit, and I'm not gonna do this without you. And he's like, in the middle of the night, that same night, in fact, said, okay. And he gets there, and they're like, are you drunk? Yes. Now put on the suit. Okay. I mean, it's like, come on. This doesn't make sense. It probably would have made more sense if maybe he was just decently smart or something like that, and they would take both of them. Right, yes. Because Reed would have demanded, like, I'm not going anywhere without my partner, right? That would have made sense. Yes. Because it's just like, he's actually taking it because he's his best friend, but he's counting him as his partner, so they take both of them. That would make sense. I don't know how he got in the building. I don't know how. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Next scene.
Well, and if I may, I don't know how many rewrites they did. I know there were a ton of rewrites on the script. And I think once you get to a certain point, you're just like, this thing needs to be done. We're just going to go with what we got. So, yeah, I mean,
and hope that
sad.
People don't look into it as deep as I am.
Well, yeah. It's sad that, well, I don't even know if anyone even watched this movie. That's how bad it was.
No one else.
I went. But,
well, even I didn't watch this movie. I like superhero movies. I didn't see this movie. This came out 5 years ago.
That
Almost
is true.
6 years ago.
That is true.
And I still haven't seen it. I heard it was bad. And I like bad movies. If it was really, really bad, I wanted to see it. But I still hadn't seen it until this point. And so, yeah, you're right. A lot of people didn't see this movie. This is just to keep up contracts, just to sell the company to Disney anyways.
Well, and it's as an aside, it's a little ironic because I'm pretty sure, I don't remember what era it was. I think it was like the 80s. They made a Fantastic Four film for the same reason, because the rights were about to expire and they had to make something in order to keep them. And the film was so bad, they never released it. But they made it, so they got to keep the rights. But like, you can't find this film. And it's again Fantastic Four. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Wow.
But
it's so weird. It's like, you value apparently this brand so bad, yet you don't want to use it. You don't utilize it. You don't want to make good movies with it and make a lot of money with it. But you don't want anybody else to have it. That's weird.
Yeah. Well, that's
where now Disney does have it.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of where Sony was with Spider-Man. They're like, we really like this character, but we kind of recognize we can't make money off of it with our own brain. So, but yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. That's not necessarily what happened.
Oh, okay.
They came across a pretty good deal, Sony. They have a pretty good deal.
They
They
do.
practically
They do.
get, right now, I don't know if they made new adjustments after the big old controversy that happened. They get 100% of all profit from the Sony, I'm sorry, the Spider-Man movies that are released in the MCU. Sony gets 100%. MCU gets none of it.
Well,
Disney gets zero.
If I may,
yeah.
I believe Disney gets all of the profit from merchandising. So like,
Yeah, that's insane too.
Yeah. So I don't know, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think there's also a percentage. I don't know if it was something like 30%. I'd have to look it up again. I'm sure it's different. Something about whenever Spider-Man is in a film, they get 30%. But I bet they've made different arrangements considering, like, well, if he's only in it for 5 minutes, are you really going to get 30%? That might have had to do more with his role in Civil War. By the way, point being is that I think they did that purposefully for their own benefit, thinking that, okay, well, we still can make our own Spider-Man movies, plus we get money from whenever he's in MCU stuff, and it's a win-win scenario. We're going to get more money by being a part of the MCU because people are going to be more hyped about it.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Fox just wanted money, period. So they sold their entire company to Disney. Does Fox? Will Fox even exist? Is Fox just dead? They're like, okay, we got Fox just to, now there is no Fox. We just own all their titles.
I think the sports and the news are still existing, but they rebranded the movie to 20th Century Studios, which is just a subsidiary of Disney now. So,
20th Century Studios. Is that just so that everybody stays where they are in their jobs?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's just an easy way of making the merger work. But anyway, we're getting really off topic here. Well, I guess it's kind of on topic because we're most likely going to see a new Fantastic Four film. And the people are screaming for John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, which I agree with. So
I do too. Yeah. I think he'd be great. Him
anyway.
Knows.
All right. Calm down. Anyway, let's reorient ourselves here because I want to talk about acting. I believe this was Miles Teller's movie right after Whiplash, which we talked about last week, coincidentally.
Oh, yeah.
And his acting is terrible in this film. And all the
there were moments where it was all right, and others where it was bad, really bad.
Yes, but my point is not that he's a bad actor because we've already seen he's not. But I think it calls back to what I said about Whiplash, where a good director will bring out the best acting in their actors, whether that means pushing them to their limit or stepping back and letting them do their own thing. And I think it's hard for me to speak bad of Josh Trank because I see his vision in this film and I really like it. And maybe it's just the reshoots caused issues or just the movie was so bogged down he couldn't really direct acting well. But all I can say is the acting is terrible. It feels forced. It feels fake. I don't believe it. It doesn't sell me. I don't know. What did you think about it?
His acting... Especially when he's trying to portray the younger version of himself, when he's being awkward and whatnot. You know, like you said, he played an awkward character in Whiplash, but he did that really well, and it seemed extremely normal. When he does it in this movie, it seems unrealistic. The things that he does, and the things that he understands, and the things that he's trying to portray, it comes off as if he's putting in an effort to be non-social. But then in other moments, he's even calling out and going out of his way to socially discuss something, but he's doing it in a very awkward way. He says it in an awkward way. Well, if you have enough confidence to approach scenarios that even normal people wouldn't, such as going to a girl and sitting with her just to be flirtatious with her, or try to, then surely you know how to say things better than simply say, I know 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Have you ever read that? And it's just like, where is this character coming from, right? Where is this from? I don't know. But then later on, it's a completely different character after years passed and he's been living towards South America. He almost has this absolutely confident character that's much more towards his normal self, I'd say. that was like, I want to speak to him kind of thing. And it's just like, I want this. And he makes demands and all this stuff. And when he's bringing the team together and he's doing the speech and whatnot, when the glasses are off and he has his clean shaven face, it's like out of nowhere, it's a different character. It's a completely different person. And I don't know what happened that caused that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, when he's acting as his awkward self, it's just awkward for everybody. And I don't even know what to say about that. There's not much to it. I can do that too if I just go monotone. So I don't know. It may have been underutilized in a way.
Well, that's
and
the thing.
I thought he was fine.
It's not just him. I mean, we pick on him because it's so perfect to contrast him against last week's movie. But all the acting feels bad. So you know it's not him as the actor. It's just the writing or the directing that didn't let them. I mean, Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther is awesome.
Oh,
I mean, clearly one of the best villains in the MCU. He had minimal screen time, and he just like sold it so well. Yeah. So it's not the actors. I think it's a combination of the writing and directing, and just a whole problem with everything. Yeah. Which is sad because I would have liked to see the complete version where acting was actually prioritized.
Well, I think the actors are probably confused, actually, when I think about it, especially when it comes to Storm, Johnny Storm. It's like, I don't know if I was in his position, I don't know what I'd be playing either. Because researching the characters is not going to help you with what it is that you're doing in this movie, because these aren't the same characters necessarily. Right. They have the same powers and they have similar origins. But what happens in this film is not like any of those things. But yet, Johnny Storm does have certain characteristics. Well, what are those characteristics, director? Oh, well, is it like the comics? Is he pretentious? Is he supposed to be gloating and super proud of himself and boastful? Okay, well, here I go trying to do that. But does that make sense for the scene? Is that realistic? Maybe not. That doesn't make sense. Why is he acting like this? Well, that's what Johnny Storm does. Well, Johnny Storm does that as a result of his positions. I can tell you this, Chris Evans probably wouldn't be reacting the same way, even as silly as his character may seem in those movies. If put in those scary situations, usually his attitude and character changes a little bit. And he uses comedy maybe as a cope at points, but we're not at that point in this film. Same thing with the woman who played Sue Storm. She kind of had a monotone character. A lot of them were very monotone. I think Michael B. Jordan was the only one that wasn't very monotone in his acting. Yes. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, everyone almost acted the same way. Yeah.
Except for Michael.
Exactly, yeah.
I think, well, Miles Teller is doing good for himself, and so is Michael B. Jordan. Miles Teller has done a bunch of really good movies from what I understand. I haven't seen him, but he did Thank You for Your Service, which was this military movie that had come out. He did Only the Brave, which had Josh Brolin, and he's about to be in Top Gun Maverick.
Yes, I didn't see that.
So he had a few things that have come out. He did Bleed for this. He did War Dogs. So he did a few things, okay, right, even after this. So I don't think this movie affected his career, because I think people know that this was not his fault.
Yeah, well, and same for Michael B. Jordan. His career is blossoming beautifully. I don't know about the other actors in the movie, but those two are doing some cool things for sure. So, anyway, quick shout out to the VFX team, because I thought the VFX on The Thing were really well done. However,
yeah, they were pretty good.
However, I think the other VFX in the movie were not as good.
Oh yeah?
I mean, I think some of the environment scenes on the planet just looked fake. You want to sell it as real as much as possible. Which, I mean, it could be... Go ahead.
There was one scene when Reed Richards is in the South America and they're extracting him from it. I know, 100% certain, they must have done reshoots or something like that, or it may have been a last-second thing. They green screened him in.
Yeah.
It may have been a while since you've seen it or something, right? But I saw it when it was happening. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. They green screened him into the shot. Wait, what is going on here?
Which shot
was that? Weird. When the Thing, right before the Thing, goes ahead and hits him with his head to knock him out when they were extracting him from the forest and whatnot he was trying to escape in. Right, everything up to that point, real. Then out of nowhere, they have a point for where they only show like his shoulders up,
Yes.
And he's attacking the soldiers. and it is so clearly green screen. It's not perfect. And I'm like I don't see the green. I just see that he is not meeting up with the environment. And I know they use CG anyways in that scene, but it's like, yeah, I don't know if they did reshoots of some sort, that they put this in after the fact and maybe changed his lines or something, or maybe he was never there at all and they got this footage in another way. But it's like, yeah, that was green screen, and I could tell.
Well, it's hard to blame VFX artists because, like, especially if it was a reshoot, they probably got the scene and had like a couple weeks to do it, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta make this fast."
Yeah,
it's hard to say. It's always different studios working on different scenes, so you don't really know. But all I can say is the thing looked pretty awesome, and that was just kind of a quick aside. But all right, well, we've been talking a while. Why don't we wrap up by talking about the morals of the film? Because I mean, amidst the jankiness of it, there was still at least one moral. And it was such a trite moral, but we'll go for it anyway. At least the one I discovered. You can hash out if you have a different take on it, but it's the idea of a dream that doesn't really manifest in the way you want it to, right? So the opening shot of the film is black, and then you hear the kid talking about. He talks about I don't remember the foot. He's talking about a football player, and he's like, "That's what I want to be when I grow up." And then he's like, his salary is so many millions, and then he leaves, and then Reed Richards' character comes up and starts talking about how he wants to teleport, be the first person to teleport. And it's like, well, why is the kid's dream to be a football player, which is already kind of far-fetched, not as ridiculed as a dream to be a teleporter, especially in this day and age? And so I think the rest of the film follows that plot beat of that dream coming true. And then because of Reed's pretentiousness, it falls apart. And, obviously all the bad things happen. And then at the end of the movie, it's kind of like picking up the pieces and saying, okay, where do we go from here? How can we turn these bad things into good things? I think another movie that parallels it is Iron Man 3, where you almost have Iron Man, or Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, Tony Stark, as this pretentious character who's struggling with a lot of PTSD and things like that. And then basically his house is blown up. He's in the middle of Tennessee. And I think there's this one scene where he's on the phone and he's talking about how he stole a blanket from an Indian, a wooden Indian. And it's again, this idea of, and it's so hashed out. The reason I bring that film up, it's so hashed out at the end. It's the idea that you start off with this perfect dream, and then that dream will never be as perfect as you wanted it or as you first imagined it to be. And then he goes on to say, we create our own demons, which is basically you are the person that helps bring down your own dreams in the end. And I think this film, this Fant4stic film, is in the exact same vein. It doesn't say it as clearly, but I think that's what it's going for. I don't know if you have a different perspective on it.
Let's see. The moral.
You've got a lot of words on it.
It's hard.
It's
hard because this movie is not focused.
Yes, it's not.
It changes its plot and in an instance. And what was the conflict 5 minutes ago is now not the conflict, which is hard when you're trying to give across any sort of message. That's the thing. As sad as it is, even as you said, with the movie, with where it was going, and where even the producer or the writer, I should say, was going to go with it. It may have not necessarily brought about a moral, as in something that's supposed to be applied to our life. It could have just been a specific type of entertainment that moves oneself emotionally. Mm-hmm. And then going from there into the studio wanting to do other things. I don't know where too many morals fit into here. But I think one thing that did stand out is that you talk about the pretentiousness and the pride. I like how Sue Storm was all like, hey, I recognize patterns, and you're doing this because you're smart, you do this, your parents didn't want you to do this, and that's why you do it, and you want to be famous. Right. And he's all like, well, I don't want to be. You're right about all things except for wanting to be famous. And she's just like, oh. He's like, I just want to change the world. She's like, right, and leaves. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Later on, when they get drunk, he's all like, hey, yeah, nobody ever remembers who was the person who made the space shuttle to the moon. People remember who was the first person on the moon. Let's go. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Exactly.
I thought what mattered to you again was about changing the world and getting in touch with NASA and all this stuff is just moving these things along. But what seems to matter is, yes, whether or not you are recognized for what you've accomplished. So I think Sue was right in the sense that you do want to be famous from this. It may not be the most sinister thing, but he was denying that aspect. And what it ended up doing was, yes, getting him and everybody hurt, even if it was out of drunkenness. But, drunkenness brings about perhaps the dark side of ourselves. Things that we wouldn't say but we think, right? And things we wouldn't do, but we think. And that's what manifests itself when one is drunk. Well, they were drunk, and that's what manifested themselves, and it ended up getting them all messed up. So the moral of the story is, don't drink alcohol.
Yes,
Thank you, folks.
The moral of the story.
Thank you for tuning in to the Spoiled Onion Show.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. It's hard to pick up the pieces and put something coherent together from a movie like this. I mean, all I can say is I saw where Josh Trank was going. I liked where he was going. I think fortunately superhero movies, now that they're 12 years old now, maybe, well, I guess early 2000s is when they really got big. So
almost
20 years old. Yeah. I think now with movies like Joker and maybe even the Batman, I'm really excited for the Batman. The studios are allowing, these directors, these artists to make a different approach to the storyline. And I think had that been the case when Josh Trank released this film, had it not been, I mean, to put it in context, in 2015 when we got this film was when you had Age of Ultron released. So I mean, the MCU is like halfway through the Infinity Saga, so they're just picking up speed, and so people weren't ready for something that was different. I think now they are, because that Infinity Saga is wrapped. And obviously Joker made a ton of money. And it is like nowhere near a superhero story. It's not even about a superhero. So I think that's cool to see that we're moving more into how can I take this superheroic idea and play with it. Like another movie that comes to mind is Brightburn, which is literally baby Superman is a horrible guy that he's going to kill everybody.
Yeah. Right.
And that's just something that when this film came out wasn't a popular idea. So
right.
I
guess the studio didn't think it could make money.
Yeah. No, I think it's before its time. Yeah. I just don't think when they looked at where Josh Trank was going, you would think studios would learn, because every time a studio I think of Solo, the movie Solo, right? That was a movie that was notorious for its production issues too. I frankly think the finished product was good. I don't think it was like the best Star Wars movie ever made, but it was great. Yeah. It was entertaining. It made sense. But every time a studio steps in and tries to fix things, even if the movie does turn out good, the publicity is always bad and the movie doesn't really do well.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they stepped back and let the directors do their things, regardless of whether it was bad or good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they need to, maybe studios should hold themselves accountable as to who they hire, right? And the context in which they hire them. Because it seems like you know exactly what you want to do from the beginning, and you know who you want to hire, and you know what their style is. But then you want to morph them and change them into doing something that they're actually not known for. And it's just like, well, what are you really hiring here? A name? Is that what it is?
Exactly.
I don't know. It seems like you're hiring somebody to be that of a factory worker for a process that is not a factory job. This is a very independently creative process.
Yes.
Yeah.
no, that's so good. It reminds me of these illustrators. I listen to their podcast, and they talk about how you don't accept an illustration project where the person hasn't seen your work, right? If they just come up to you and they're like, "Oh, I want to hire you. By the way, what is your style like?" They're just hiring you because of your name, which is really what studios do. Like you said, they hire directors that have success because they think maybe they can have success with this film too. Instead, you want to hire a director whose style you already are familiar with and who you think is gonna be in line with your vision too. But yeah, that was the big fatal flaw of Fant4stic, which we call it that. Why do we call it that?
Because the logo and all the advertisements for this one, they put the 4 in the A position for Fantastic Four. So even if I didn't count that 4 there, it would just be fantastic.
Exactly.
So I gotta give it what it actually is. It's Fant4stic. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Yeah. I have a funny anecdote. I'm going to share this really quick before we wrap. So when I went to go see the theater, every time I go to the theater, it's an experience. But this time, I was kind of in the middle of this collecting souvenir cup phase. Mm. And so when I went to see Fantastic Four, I was like, oh, I hope they have a souvenir cup for it. So I get to the counter and I'm like, do you have a Fantastic Four souvenir cup? And I see one sitting right behind on the back counter. I was like, oh, okay, they have it. And the woman's like, no, we're all out of those. I was like, but I see one right there. And then she turns around. She's like, oh, yeah, no, I guess we're not all out.
What?
Yes. That is my theater going experience. It is always
That's so sad.
Yeah, another time the girl was like, do you want a receipt? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, our receipt machine is broken. I was like, oh,
what?
Okay.
Yeah. That is ridiculous. Did you want a receipt? Sure. Yeah. Oh, our receipt machine's broken. Oh. Don't ask me next time.
Well, now it's like all machines, so I have to wonder if that's why there are kiosks now to buy tickets. No.
Right.
No. Anyway. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us today. Did you have any last words, Brandon, before I take us out?
I hate this movie.
I know you do.
This was a bad movie.
You should do the illustration for YouTube and just I don't know, destroy it.
It's going to be you with a big old chart. It'll be like the meme explaining how it is that Fantastic Four is actually a good movie.
Oh, like the meme where the dude's in the Spider-Man costume?
Sure, like how it is that it's just a big old look, see, just look. And it's like, no, you're coping. You love Fantastic Four and they did a bad job and now you need to justify it.
That's the exact opposite. I don't love Fantastic Four, so I'm able to objectively stand back and see how this could have been an awesome story.
We both know you have the Thing's costume in your closet right now. You're wearing the Thing costume with the clobbering gloves.
I currently have a pile of rocks chilling in my closet.
That you glue to yourself every Friday night before going to bed because you love this series so bad. You cannot stand the idea of it not existing in a good manner.
Oh my god.
That's my last comment, everybody.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us yet again for our first real dive into a movie that wasn't critically approved by our competitors, who we don't speak of here. We just refer to them as the other critic review platform. Yes. But yes, this has been Spoiled Onions Film Review Podcast. If you like the podcast, feel free to give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That'd be lovely. Or feel free to join us on our YouTube page, where you can give us a like, and more importantly, you can join in the discussion through the comments board. Please feel free to tell us what movie you'd like to see next, and feel free to give us your comments on this movie. If you've seen it.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, why you haven't seen it, why you thought it was a good movie with some issues like I did, or why
Joseph is wrong. And go ahead, which most of you we already know will come to say.
Probably
unless
true.
Joseph, the Fantastic Four fan club, which he runs at his school, it's called the FFFC. The FFFC. And are all going to come and bombard our comment section with, I love this movie.
Yes. No, I already know that. I already know that most of you haven't even seen it, for one thing. And that most of you who have seen it probably didn't like it, which is sad.
It's a beautiful disgrace. Let's close it out.
All right. Awesome, guys. So feel free, hop on YouTube, hop on iTunes. And until then, we will see you.
Yeah, see you guys. Bye.